If you want to flood your screens just like this, I got the perfect build for you. This is the third iteration of this specific build and it just keeps on getting better. I took the concept of the death by 200 comets video and then added plus 500% damage by swapping one item and several passives. I also changed how the defenses of this build work and made it a lot tankier because that's one of the comments that I saw in the previous video. And I also significantly improved the performance during the boss battles because again, that's one of the comments that I saw in the previous video. So if that sounds exciting to you, let's get into the build. So just to recap this build, you cast your fireballs, you summon Raging Spirits. Your Raging Spirits, because of this, once they get in contact with an enemy, they ignite. And once you ignite, this specific amulet right here triggers and you take 100 damage. But pairing it with this passive, which says that all bonuses from the equip amulet applies to your minions instead, your minions take the damage. Your minions that got in contact with an enemy dies and triggers these cast on minion death, which triggers all of the socketed skills plus their support skills. So that's basically the concept of this build, and it is very important to actually know that. With that being said, let's move on to the gears that you need for this specific build. And again, I'll go through the equipment that you need based on the importance of that specific item. The first thing is this. This is the Fireflower Solar Amulet. This build will not work if you do not have this. This is the one that kills your minions along with your Necromantic Talisman passive. The next item in this build is this helmet right here, which I cannot pronounce. This helmet gives you the ability to use 2 copies of the same support gem in different skills, which is very important for this build as well. There is a downside to this. It says here on the 4th line, equipment and skill gems have 21% increased attribute requirements. So another comment that I saw in the video is, how do I know how much attribute do I need to equip a certain skill? So one of the things that you can see here is the requirements. Requirement is 191. And this says that equipment and skill gems have 21% increased attribute. So basically what you do is get the requirement, which is 191, multiply that by 1.21 because of the 21%, and 231 is your actual required attribute. And as you see here, I do have 259, so it clears that. It's also another comment saying when they equip this, they don't have enough, and it's saying that it is negating all of the effects of this helmet. One thing that you can do there is add a soul, which converts 20% of the requirements to intelligence. Instead of having strength, dex, intelligence at the same level, it reduces the requirements for strength and dexterity and puts it in intelligence, which we do have a lot. The next one is this. This is the newest one in our build. This is the Threaded Light Woven Focus. The one thing that you need here is it says 14% increased spell damage per 10 spirit. And that is very important. This is where the majority of our added damage comes from. So pulling up the calculator again, I have 322 spirit. So let's just call that 320 just in case it says just per 10, and multiply that by 14 and divide it by 10. So this alone gives me plus 448 increased spell damage. And I'm going to show you a little bit later where that plus 500 number came from. This is actually very, very good. We have swapped the wand. This was the previous one that I had. It had the plus 126 spell damage and the mana and all of the spell skills and mana regeneration. I swapped it for this. So you get this. This was our previous setup right here. This is how it looked like. So you basically take this out, put that on the other side, put that there, boom. That's your new setup. That's pretty much it. This is fairly cheap, I would say. If we look at the non-corrupted, look at that. This 1x, which is fairly cheap, very easy to buy. So try to get as high as possible in this area though. I have 14. So try to get to 15 if you can afford it. But that's basically what you need. This one, not so much. This one, not so much as well. Just try to focus on the increased spell damage per 10 spirit. For our scepter, I am still using the previous one, the Rattling Scepter, which gives me 206 overall spirit. You need to focus on the spirit here. You also want the maximum mana and mana regeneration. For the rest of the build, it's pretty much the same. I'm still using the Keth Raiment here, which gives me spirit. That's important. Gives you some energy shield and life and resistances. And again, try to get as many stats or attributes as possible here, because this actually impedes sometimes this build's ability to actually work. Just try to get as many stat attribute as you possibly can. For the gloves, and the same life, mana, stat, which is your attribute plus 13 intelligence here, and some resistances. And this one as well, life, mana, attribute, and resistances. Obviously, your movement speed here is important as well. Moving on to the belt and the ring. For this, I have the Ingenuity belt. You don't really need this. If you are on a budget, try to get the same as your gloves and boots. Try to get mana, life, stat, or an attribute, and resistances. This, I just bought this just because I have the currency. But again, if you don't have it, mana, life, stat, resistances. For your rings, try to get the same, basically, life, mana, resistances. In this case, though, the other stat that you need is the mana regeneration rate. Same there. I have life, mana, resistances, and mana regeneration. And it would be good if you can get an attribute there as well. So that's pretty much for the gear. It has been mostly the same except for this and this, which again, you don't really need. Now let's move on to the gems that we are going to use for this build. It's largely going to be the same, but the major change here is the 2 fireballs. Again, this is completely possible because of this helmet. We can use the same support gems in 2 different skills, and it actually is working. For the fireball, there was another comment in the previous video saying, why do we need low-level fireballs? I tested it out. I maxed it out to level 19, and it pretty much works the same. So feel free to level it up to level 19 or the max that you can possibly use. It's fairly the same mostly for mapping and bossing, so don't be too worried about having to get a low-level fireball for this specific build. Now let's move on to the support gems. First one is Unleash, which basically gives you more fireballs. And the reason why I have 2 of them, because you can just use the first one to take advantage of the max fireballs that you can do, and then another for another max. So you can see how important that is during the boss phase, boss battle, because you get to cast more fireballs, meaning more Raging Spirits, meaning more Comets, and Frost Walls. The second one is Scattershot. Scattershot gives you 2 additional projectiles. Again, same concept. More fireballs, more Raging Spirits, more Comets. And this one is the Ricochet. Basically, just 40% chance to chain an additional time from a terrain. We also have the Arcane Tempo, which gives you more cast speed. So the last one is Acceleration, which gives you 40% more projectile speed. This is actually what I really like about this. Your fireballs hit the enemies faster, it explodes faster, and it basically summons more Raging Spirits, thus giving you more Comet spells on your screen. It's pretty good. Again, just copy paste this, copy paste. If you only have 4 gem sockets, you can basically get rid of this. This is okay to be taken out. This also can be taken out as well. So pick your poison. It's either this or this that you're taking out if you only have 4 gem sockets. For our first cast and minion death skill, we do have our Comet for this one. We have Inspiration, which reduces the cost of the skill, which is pretty good. We have the Spell Echo, which gives you another Comet, your energy gain here for the Impetus, and the first one has the Spell Cascade. All right, it's very important. The first one has the Spell Cascade. For your second cast and minion death, it's basically the same. You have your Comet, Inspiration, Spell Echo, and Impetus. And the next one actually is Magnified Effect. The reason why I have Magnified Effect over here, because we are going to use the Cascade on the Frost Wall of the third cast and minion death. So let's talk about that. Cast and minion death, you have your Frost Wall, you have your Fortress, so that it becomes a circle, less damage, but it creates a circle. Has a chance to trap some of the Raging Spirits there as well, but most of the time it is just used for damage. You have your Lightning Exposure as well, it's pretty good. And the Spell Cascade, as mentioned, This gives you way more Frost Wall, which is better in my opinion than just having way more comets. We already have this anyways, and during the mapping, as you will see and we will experience, when you have this build, it just is an overkill. So this is a pretty good thing to have, especially for bosses as well. You also have Ingenuity for this so that your Frost Wall cools down faster. Another hot button topic on the previous video is the next one is the Archmage. So let's read this and explain why we are using conductivity here instead of hypothermia. So this specific Spirit Gem, it says here non-channeling spells gain 8% of damage as an extra lightning damage for each 100 maximum mana that you have. I have right now 3,500. So let's bring our trusty calculator once again. So let's say 3,500 divided by 100, that's 35, multiply that by 8. So you gain 280% more damage as a lightning damage, as an extra. Right? This is an extra on top of the damage of your comets. Yes, it is cold. Yes, this is cold as well, but it gives you way more lightning damage. That's why we are using the conductivity. For this one, it's pretty straightforward. You have your lightning mastery and clarity for an additional mana regeneration. For your Raging Spirits, this is the main thing that you need, of course, although everything is important. You have your Infernal Legion. This is the one where if they touch an enemy, ignite an enemy, die because of the amulet and the passive, and you cast your comets, basically. You also have this, the Fire Exposure, and Feeding Frenzy, because so that they take more damage, they die faster, and your Minion Instability, which explodes them after their death, 15% chance. For the last one, it's the Conductivity. You have your Conductivity over here. Focused Curse makes it activate faster. You have your Heightened Curse, which increases the effect of the curse. And you have your Magnified Effect, which increases the area of effect that you have your curse. So that's pretty much it. That is for pathing. It's for mobs, mapping, whatever you want to call it. For bossing, though, it's fairly straightforward. Get 2 concentrated effects over here. Swap them to the last spot of your cast and minion death. Boom. That's it. So we're taking out the spell cascade and we're taking out the area of effect, more area of effect. That's pretty much it. That's your swap for your boss. Pretty straightforward. And when you are bossing, since you have 2 fireballs, you try to fireball the first one and then fireball the second one and then just cycle. Most of the time they're dead after 2 cycles anyways, but try to cycle. I have my Q, I have my W, so you just have more Raging Spirits summoned. And it's pretty good. Gets you a lot of comets and frost walls. Now let's move on to the passive tree. We are going to maintain the Constant Gale and the Force of Will. Since we are no longer using Energy Shield, as you may have noticed, we're not going to take this. We're not also going to take this, but take all of this for our lightning. As mentioned, we are dealing pretty much lightning damage here, majority of it. So this is the one that you actually want. All of the damage from hits contribute to shock. And why do we need to shock? Shock is an ailment that causes target to take 20% increased damage. So that's just more damage when we are mapping and bossing and pretty much just doing anything in the map. All right, let's move on to the passive, the main passive tree. So you are going to take this route for more damage, more mana regeneration, spell damage, and 10 intelligence. We also need this for more energy regeneration, or mana regeneration rather. We are going to take this plus 10 intelligence, although we do not have maximum energy. It is needed because I want to get this mana blessing here, which gives you plus 5% increased mana. You're going to take this route over here, go down. So we are wasting maybe like a couple of nodes here, which is fine by me. I may actually look into this and try to see if I can make that a little bit more efficient. But you basically just go up and take this socket right here, and then you go left, another socket right there. This is, once again, very, very, very important. This build will not work if you don't have this, the Necromantic Talisman. We are also using this, the Mind Over Matter. This is another new thing added. All damage is taken from mana before life, but you do have 50% less mana recovery rate. So take as many mana recovery rate as you possibly can. This does make the entire build actually like really, really stronger, because you are regenerating at 923. That is not moving. If you are moving, that's 1,000. 1,000 right there. So you are constantly regenerating technically your life, and you are using your life technically to activate your skills, but we are going to talk about that a little bit later with the gem sockets. You also want to get this over here. I do have like an extra skill point over here, so that looks weird, but yeah, take this node over here, get another jewel socket right there, another jewel socket right there, and you also get this reduced life regeneration rate, which we're not really concerned about. What it does though is the 20% of your damage taken recouped as mana. We don't know recoup, basically regenerate that over 8 seconds. You also get a lot of mana regeneration over there. Moving on, you go top, another jewel socket, another jewel socket. Again, I am going to try to see if I can make this a little bit more efficient, but you also want to take all of this. So this is your intelligence, this is your mana regeneration rate. All of this is also increases your spell damage per 100 mana. This Eldritch Battery is another thing that is new to this build. You convert all of your energy shield to mana, basically increasing your defenses and increasing your damage and increasing your survivability without the shield, which is pretty good. This one we're going to maintain. We're just going to take triggered spell here, 45% more damage. You have your trigger skill here as well, refunding half of their energy, 25% chance. You go down, you get another jewel socket. I took all of this. This basically gives you triggered spell damage, increased spell damage here. You also have another. This is also important. Meta skills gain 8% increased energy. It's pretty good. You go down. This, again, another awkward spot. You get another jewel socket over there, and you get all of your mana regeneration over here. It also reduces mana cost, which is very important. And then we snake our way down over here. Another jewel socket, and this is actually pretty good as well. Increases your mana regeneration and 15% reduced mana cost while not on low mana. So as long as your mana is above 35%, your energy cost is going to be reduced by 15, which is huge because we are using our mana as our life as well. Oh, and another, I just forked here, over here, and over here, another 2 jewel sockets. Again, we're going to look into making that a little bit more efficient. But basically, our jewel sockets are, in a way, kind of forced, but it is very important. Now let's talk about that jewel socket, which leaves this build with a lot of things, a lot of improvement, high ceiling over here. The jewel sockets that you want mana on kill, you want mana regeneration, increased spell damage, or increased trigger damage, or increased elemental damage. That's pretty good. You may not get the ideal. I do have this minions deal 11% more damage, which is good, but like not really needed. Try to get your mana on kill at 2% though. Each jewel socket at 2% is going to be very ideal here because again, we are using our mana as our life. So this is one of the things that I will need to change because it has life on kill, which is good, but not really necessary. And it also has that energy recharge rate, but it does have 15% spell damage and 2% mana on kill. You also want to get your meta skill gain energy. It's also pretty good. Again, triggered mana. There is that one dud over here because we're no longer using a energy shield. And that's pretty much it. You try to get your mana on kill, elemental damage, spell damage, trigger damage, pretty good. Mana regeneration is ideal, and meta skill gain. That's pretty much what you are looking for when looking for these jewels. So that's pretty much it for the entire build. If you have any other questions, please leave them in the comment section below and I'll try my best to answer all of your questions. This actually is a really awesome build because it just floods your screen with comets. Very enjoyable, really improved boss performance in this one. And you also maintain the mapping benefits. Plus, it is definitely way tankier than the previous build. So enjoy the build, enjoy the map showcase, and I'll see you guys next time. If you are trying to follow this guide and playing this game, you do not have time to cook delicious and nutritious meals for yourself because you have mobs to kill and divine orbs to loot. So let our sponsor of the month help you out. Factor offers chef-prepared, dietitian-approved meals that you can heat up and enjoy in 2 minutes so you can eat healthy and get back to grinding faster. They have a wide selection of meals like this barbecue pork sloppy joe, this 3-bean vegan chili, and this Veracruz style cod. So if you are in the US and you want to enjoy delicious meals, click the link in the description below or scan the QR code on your screen to get 50% off your first box and free shipping. Thanks to Factor for sponsoring this video.
You cannot stop us. We will take the power that we deserve.
I think not, Mad Wolf.
First one's iron.